Are my slides visible?
Yes, sir. Your slides is visible.
Thank you very much, Professor, for the nice introduction. Uh, I welcome all participants to this session. Uh, During the course of the session, I request you to be free. Let's not treat this as a session, but let's treat this as a discussion. Okay. Anytime you have any suggestion, anytime you have any doubts, or you feel what will happen if I change the technology like this, feel free to have a discussion on that. Okay. So the topic of today's talk is need of PLL in control of VSI involved in V2G. So V2G is associated with electric vehicles. Okay. So first of all, why we are talking about this? Because we are having three major challenges: global warming, climate change, and carbon footprints. Right. So electric vehicle has been designed to. We want electric vehicles to come into prominence to take care of these three challenges that we are facing. And what is role of V2G in that? What is role of PLL in V2G? That we'll be discussing. Okay. So these are the three challenges, four challenges rather that we are facing. Population explosion. As per UN data, our population will reach about 9 billion by 2023. So increase in population means we'll require more and more energy, right, for quality living. Then energy generation comes from thermal power plants that is going to have gaseous emissions, result in carbon emissions, right, which will result into global warming and climate change. So we are already seeing melting of polar ice. By 2050, the polar bears might be extinct, right? The next few generations onwards, they will not be able to see the polar bear. Increasing sea levels, right? Some of the island nations will be submerged. There is a good documentary on YouTube about Tears of Kiribati. Kiribati is an island in Pacific, and what problems they are facing due to the rise in sea levels. Extreme weather conditions, whether there are grasslands, they will experience droughts. Deserts will experience snowfall or rains. These are the problems that we're facing. So main reason for all this is carbon emissions, right? Uh, and if we continue living in this way, our planet may become uninhabitable, right? So what are the root causes of carbon emissions, right? So what is the transportation sector? Naturally, the petrol and diesel based vehicles are emitting some gases which are contributing to the carbon emissions. Thermal power plants in utility sector, they are causing carbon emissions. Industrial sectors, there are chemical factories, refining sectors, iron and steel industries, food and paper products, they're also contributing. So if we check, transportation contributes about 29% of the carbon emissions. Electricity sector, the generation sector, contributes about 25%, industry sector 23%, commercial and residential 13%, and agricultural 10%. So we are here, transportation sector, right? We need to reduce this 29%. So how can we reduce this? So two major challenges sectors are there which are contributing to the carbon emission. One is the utility sector and one is transportation sector. So when we talk about the utility sector, thermal power plants, they are the one to contribute. How can we reduce this? By using more and more solar and wind based electric power generation. For transportation sector, we need to shift from petrol and diesel based vehicle to electric vehicles. Now when we talk about electric vehicles, we need battery, okay, to power the electric vehicles. So if we are going to charge that battery from the grid, if we are going to charge the battery from the grid, which is powered by thermal power plants, are we really going to reduce carbon emissions? The answer is no, not to that great extent. It's not zero emission vehicle. It's a zero emission while the vehicle is moving on the road, but not actually zero emission vehicles. So we need to have, that's why this red arrow is there. We need to have renewable energy to charge our electric vehicles. So I will just cover some basics of electric vehicles and then go to the main topic that we are having. Okay. What is electric vehicle? Any vehicle plying on the road that is driven by electric motor and powered by a battery can be termed as an electric vehicle. Which are the types of electric vehicle? Hybrid electric vehicle where there was no port for charging the batteries, right? There was internal combustion engine. Hybrid means there are two things now. Internal combustion engine is there, petrol diesel tank is there, electric motor is there and battery is there. But there is no way to charge the battery externally. Then we had plug-in hybrid electric vehicle where again internal combustion engine was there, petrol diesel tank was there, electric motor was there, battery was there, and there's a socket, a plug, right? A socket can be connected to a plug or grid, and we can charge the battery pack. So the torque required to drive the vehicle was coming from electric motor as well as your internal combustion engine. Then pure battery electric vehicle, where there is a battery powering an electric motor which is driving the vehicle. There is no internal combustion engine, there is no requirement of petrol and diesel. And then it may happen that we may shift from battery technology to fuel cell based technology. So there is fuel cell, well, FCEV, what we call it, the fuel cell based electric vehicles. So when electric vehicle is in motion, it has to overcome certain forces. One, mass into acceleration, it has to take care of that. Then when a vehicle is driving on a gradient, some forces are going to act. These two forces, we have to take care of that. Then there is going to be friction between the tire and the road. So tire rolling resistance coefficient comes into picture, that is here. We have to overcome this. And when the vehicle is moving, the aerodynamic drag is going to come into picture. So this is there. So all these components are there. They constitute the tractive effort or force, tractive force, FT. So electric vehicle, if you want to move your vehicle, you have to overcome this tractive effort, FT. So you have to generate a torque which will overcome this force. That is the main thing that we are going to achieve in any propulsion system. So if you talk about electric vehicle technology, you have electric propulsion system, you have battery charging system, you have electric vehicle as a distributed energy resource. So these are the three main components of electric vehicle technology. So electric propulsion system, right? What does this system do? As its name suggests, it's about propulsion. Propulsion means to propel the vehicle, to move the vehicle. Right? So this system is associated with control of flow of power from battery to the motor for the desired motion of the vehicle. So why are we controlling the flow of the power? Because we want to control the speed of the motor. Why we are going to control the speed of the motor? So that I can have desired motion. Right? Second is the battery charging system. See, this electric propulsion system requires some energy. So you have that electrical energy is going to be provided by a battery. Right? So that battery is going to provide the energy, and as it provides the energy, it will get discharged. So as the vehicle is running on the road, the battery is getting discharged. So this battery requires frequent charging, right? It requires frequent charging. So this battery charging system controls the flow of power from grid. We are going to charge from the grid to the electric vehicle battery. But when we are going to charge this battery, we have to go for different modes of charging, right? Constant voltage charging, constant current charging. So all these things will be incorporated, all this control will be incorporated as a part of this battery charging system. Battery charging system is drawing power from the grid and supplying it to the battery. Okay, so this is called grid to vehicle because battery is located inside the vehicle. So this is G2V operation. Similarly, electric vehicle as a distributed energy resource. You have seen the rooftop solar, it is connected to the grid. You have your huge solar plants which are connected to the grid. Similarly, you have wind farms connected to the grid. So all these are distributed energy resources. Similarly, large batteries can also be treated as distributed energy resources. So, but at the same time, your electric vehicle can also be treated as a distributed energy resource. It can supply energy to the grid. So when you have electric vehicle as a distributed energy resource, it will facilitate this system will facilitate the electric vehicle battery operation as a distributed energy resource and control the flow of power from battery pack to the grid. So you are having your electric vehicle batteries acting as a source and it is supplying power to the grid. So your vehicle battery is located inside the vehicle. So I'll say vehicle is supplying power to the grid. So that is called G2V operation. Right. So these are the three main components of electric vehicle technology, that is electric propulsion system, battery charging system, and this V2G system. So what is electric propulsion system? So this is the electric propulsion system that we are having. You have motor, you have battery. So now battery is output is DC, motor is AC, so you need to provide it variable voltage, variable frequency supply. What we call it as V/F control, vector control, or direct torque control. So all this control deal with variable voltage, generating variable voltage, variable frequency supply. So in short, it requires AC supply. So DC to AC conversion. That's why we have 6 switch voltage source inverter here. Now it may happen that your battery is 48 volt DC voltage at the output and the motor requires 100 volt AC. So that means 100 volt peak value voltage is there. So that means here 100 volt DC should be there. So bidirectional DC-DC converter is there, which will convert the 48 volt DC to 100 volt DC. Okay. So power will flow from battery, DC-DC converter, inverter and motor. At the same time, when we want to go, see, what is the biggest challenge that we are facing in electric vehicles? Why people are not accepting electric vehicle more and more? Can anyone answer this? What is the biggest hindrance?
Range concern.
Sorry, I'm not able to hear you.
Range.
If you can speak a little bit
It's a
louder.
range concern.
Range.
It's a range concern.
Yeah, range, right? Range concern. So you need to
Limited
have
life of
range
battery.
so you need to have a vehicle which can drive a longer distance. Okay. One way to increase your range is by increasing the size of your battery pack. But as the size of the battery pack increases, the weight increases, more torque is required to drive the vehicle. Okay. There is one more way. You know, these days there is one more buzzword. Energy saved is energy generated. Right. One of the former American presidents, Jimmy Carter, has said that energy conservation is act of patriotism. So we need to conserve more and more energy. Same applies here. If we reduce the losses, if we conserve the energy, what will happen? For the same amount of charge, we can drive larger distance. So one way of conserving energy is going for more energy efficient motors. That's why we go for magnet synchronous motors, which have got higher efficiency. Okay. Power electronic converters are pretty efficient. Now what about braking? When we are braking the vehicle, we are wasting the energy in form of friction and heat. Can we feed that energy back to the motor? Yes, that is called regenerative braking. Right? So at that times of regenerative braking, the vehicle, the wheel will act as your prime mover and supply the energy. Okay, your motor will act as a generator and feed the energy back to the supply. This voltage source inverter, right, that will act as a rectifier, to be precise, PWM rectifier. It will ensure that the stator currents are sinusoidal, right? It will try to reduce the speed of the rotor, and the bidirectional converter is required because now the power will flow from motor to the battery pack. That's why bidirectional DC-DC converters are required. So these are the main components. Battery responsible for providing necessary power for propulsion. Electric motor, right? Electric motor is responsible for generation of torque for the required propulsion of EV. Power converters, they modulate the flow of the power flowing from battery to the motor, right? So that desired motion can be obtained. And this propulsion system is responsible for the desired motion of electric vehicle. Coming to battery charging system, right? Why I'm discussing this is because all these will be correlated when we try to study PLL. How here comes into picture in battery charging as well as V2G. So main components are battery, right, which has to be charged. So battery discharges while EV is moving on the road. It needs to be frequently charged again and again. So for battery charging, you have grid, right? Grid will supply AC. So AC to DC converter will supply the AC to DC, right? Suppose you have 3-phase rectifier, diode bridge rectifier, let's assume, and you are connecting to grid. So you have roughly 300 volt, 398 volt system or 400 volt AC supply. So that will be converted to DC. There will be DC link capacitor. That capacitor will charge roughly to 586 volt, right? So 586 volt DC is not, we do not need that much voltage to charge my 48 volt battery at the, right? So I will convert that 586 volt DC to, let's say, 52 volt DC. So for that DC-DC converter is required. Right? So we have a battery which discharges frequently, right, as the EV is moving, so it needs to be frequently charged as well. So charging system consists of 2 power converters, DC-DC converter and AC to DC converter. DC-DC converter controls the charging of the battery pack with different charging modes like constant current charging, constant voltage charging, boost charging. These are the different modes of charging. Then we have AC to DC converter, which facilitates the availability of DC supply at the input of DC-DC converter. As I said, you have here, let's say 586 volt, you want to convert it into 52 volt DC, so DC-DC converter will be required. Plus this DC-DC converter also control the constant voltage, constant current, all these charging modes will be controlled by this converter. So this charging of battery system is termed, because power is flowing from grid to the battery and battery is located inside vehicle, so I'll say grid to vehicle, so it is termed as G2V. Okay, this G2V system is responsible for charging of the battery pack. Then the next is EVSDR, distributed energy resource. Okay. So someone will say EV has very less capacity, how can be a DER? But in future more and more EVs will come into picture, right? So more and more EVs are there means then combinedly they can act as a provide sufficient power to the grid. So now your EV is going to act as a source. Let's say here at this point you have 48 volt. Just a minute, my okay. At this point, I have got 48 volt only. Okay, and I have to supply a system that is working at, let's say, 400 volt AC. Okay. So 400 volt AC is there. That means I need to have inverter. So DC to AC converter is nothing but inverter. So I have my inverter here. But this DC link of the inverter, that is what I'm worried about. I need to step up my 48 volt to, let's say, 600 volt DC. Okay, and this 600 volt DC will be converted to 400 volt AC. Okay. This is AC and all others values which are specified at DC. Why cannot connect 48 volt DC to directly 400 volt AC system with the help of inverter? Why this 600 volt is required, that we will try to see ahead. Okay. So here again battery is there, battery is going to be discharged here, it needs to be frequently charged, but here battery is going to act as a source, it is going to supply. Okay, and this battery, what we were doing previously, we were controlling the charging of the battery pack. Now DC-DC converter, it is going to step up the DC voltage. Then AC to DC converter was there previously, now it is DC to AC converter. What it is going to do, it is going to convert DC supply into AC supply. So V2G, in V2G is responsible for flow of power from battery pack to the grid. So now, because battery is located inside a vehicle, we call it V2G, vehicle to grid. The vehicle is going to act as a source and supply to the grid. Okay. So what are the recent developments occurring in EV technology? One is, this is generalized for everyone. One is PM assisted synchronous reluctance motor. This is the new technology that is coming into picture. Second one is wide band gap switches. So which type of switches are used now? Rather than silicon, we are shifting to silicon carbide switches, right? They have lower switching losses, lower conduction losses, so higher efficiency, power converter efficiency you can say, and they can operate till higher temperatures. One of the challenge EV is facing is in terms of the temperature, right? Hybrid energy systems, you can have ultra capacitor as well as a battery. You can have flywheel as well as a battery inside the electric vehicle. V2G, G2V, these are the two scenarios. Either from lead acid we went to the lithium ion batteries, from lithium ion solid state batteries. Unmanned vehicle. During my PhD, I had a chance to meet a Japanese person. He was working on unmanned vehicles and he showed me a concept vehicle, right, in terms of some videos what they are making. At a vehicle, you go and sit inside, you just tell them where you want to go, and with the help of GPS it will show you, okay, this is the location where you want to go. You say okay, the vehicle will start moving. Okay, this is excellent when you want to send your kids to the school or some old person, or you want to go to some hospital and unable to drive. Then how can we incorporate AI, ML, data science into electric vehicles, right? There might be some cloud computing involved. Then solar powered electric vehicles, the glass in your electric vehicles, that can be a solar, right? I had seen a solar PV panel. Usually what we have PV panel at the rooftop are not transparent, but now transparent solar panels are also available, so they can be form over glass. PV paints are available. You can just paint your EV with a PV paint, and that can work as a, it may not be able to drive your motor, but it can be provide the auxiliary supply. Then of course power converters are going to come into picture, like dual active bridge DC-DC converters are there. So there are some recent developments which you can target which you can for your research. So coming to our main topic, what is V2G and what is G2V? V2G and G2V involve interaction between EV and grid one way or the other. When we talk about vehicle to grid utilizes the stored energy in the EV battery to contribute electricity back to the electric power grid, right, as and when grid requests for it. Grid to vehicle, it utilizes the electric vehicle energy from the grid to charge the EV batteries. Okay. Now, before we go into V2G and G2V, these concepts, let's have an idea about microgrid, because your electric vehicle or your charging stations are going to be a miniature microgrids, right? When you have a charging station at your college, that is going to be a miniature microgrid. So microgrids involved management of electric supply for the localized load with the help of localized distributed generation. So you have localized generation, localized distribution, localized consumption of electrical energy. With the maturity of electric energy, renewable energy technology and its wider acceptance, microgrids are expected to play a significant role in electric power generation, right from the transmission level to the distribution level, even for rural electrification. So usually when you talk about microgrids, we have energy storage elements, we have power converters, grid is involved, some localized loads are involved, and there might be a unidirectional or a bidirectional power flow. So there are two types of microgrids: standalone microgrid and grid-tied microgrids. This is standalone microgrids. So you have your load, okay, and solar PV panel is there. So solar output of the PV panel will fed to a DC-DC converter. This will apply your MPPT algorithm. It will be connected to a VSI, and the AC power supply is given to the load. Now at night time, suppose your solar PV is not available. Okay, what you will do? So you have another battery here. Okay. So at night time, battery can be there. Battery requires a bidirectional DC-DC converter because battery needs to be charged from the PV. Battery can be charged from the diesel generator, and it can supply the energy to load as well. But it may happen that morning time, because of the cloudy atmosphere, battery could not charge. At night time, it's not able to provide to the load. So you can even have a diesel generator. Okay. So this diesel generator can play a role. It can be a backup plant, something like a backup plant, right? So that it can ensure that load is being supplied. There is no, supply is not there. That scenario does not arise. So for that, as a backup, you can have diesel generator. Again, when you use diesel generator, you need for diesel. You are going to contribute to the carbon emissions. Plus, depending on the the day of autonomy, how much time you require the battery backup power from the battery, based on that size of the battery will also be increased. Now in grid tied, what we did, we changed our diesel generator with our grid. Okay, so now grid is available. So this is my point of common coupling, okay, where this system is connected to the grid, load. All these three are connected at this point. Okay. So same thing is there. PV will be supplying to the load. Battery can supply to the load. Battery can take up from the load, take up from the grid. It can get charged. Battery can get charged from PV panel. So let's say load requires 10 kilowatt of power. PV will supply 5 kilowatt. Battery supplies 5 kilowatt. Fine. Grid does not need to supply. Now load requires 20 kilowatt. Grid gives 5 kilowatt. Battery gives 5 kilowatt. Grid has to supply 10 kilowatt. If PV is generating 10 kilowatt, load requires 5 kilowatt. 5 kilowatt can go to the load. 5 kilowatt can be fed back to the grid, or it can be used to charge the battery. So different scenarios will arise in this. So microgrid source are renewable energy source, usually solar. Battery backup is involved. Why solar? Because it's free and abundantly available. Right? In our country, almost for 10 months or a year, we get this solar energy. It's pretty bright and sun. Why solar and battery? Because it may happen that solar is not in a position to supply to the load, night time. Okay. So you need battery backup has to be there. So morning battery can charge from the PV, right? And at night time, if the night time, or there are some times when PV, like cloudy condition, when the PV is not able, or evening time, when PV is not able to supply the load fully, the battery can come into picture. It can discharge, act as a source and supply to the load. So see, microgrid battery is one of the components. Okay, same battery is used in our electric vehicle. Okay, lithium-ion battery. We cannot have battery-powered electric vehicle cannot be without a battery. That's why it's called battery-powered electric vehicle. Right? So electric vehicles are going to are powered by batteries. Battery discharges as the vehicle moves from one place to another. Battery of electric vehicle is charged for daily commuting. You need to charge the vehicle. Either you charge at night time or you charge if you are parking lot where you're going to park an EV facility, you can charge there. But see, morning you are coming to college, evening you are going back. So that 8 hours or 9 hour period, your vehicle is lying idle. The battery is not doing anything during that period. So we'll take this scenario. The college timing is from 9 to 5. Person arrives at 8:45, parks his electric vehicle in the college parking lot, leaves from the college at 5:15. From 8:45 a.m. to 5:15 p.m., what is battery doing? It's idle, right? Can this idle battery be put to use? Yes. The answer is V2G. By having V2G, we can put this battery to use. Okay. So can we make use of idle vehicle battery from 8:45 a.m. to 5:15 p.m.? Yes. Can electric vehicle make some money for the faculty from 8:45 a.m. to 5:15? Yes. Okay. Can it contribute to the betterment of society? Do we require, power plants which have to handle the peak load? Can that peak load be transferred to the electric vehicle batteries? Can electric vehicle battery help us to avoid power cuts? Right. Let's try to see through that. So battery is integral part of microgrid as we had discussed. Battery is here. Okay. So what are the problems with the batteries? One is high cost. Okay. And we cannot have a small battery. We need sufficient amount of batteries, right, with sufficient capacity, depending on how much time, right, based on your design, at how much time you want to battery to provide the backup power. Batteries are pretty costly. Okay. Based on the rating, the cost is going to increase. This is a centralized system. That means all batteries, there's one bidirectional DC-DC converter. If this DC-DC converter develops some fault and has to be taken out for repairs, you have to replace it with another DC-DC converter. If this DC-DC converter is nothing but what we call as battery charger. Okay. If this fails, right, the entire battery is out of the picture. So can we have decentralized control, multiple batteries with multiple DC-DC converters? Okay. Can an idle EV battery interact with the grid and supply power? Can this result in economic benefit? The answer is yes, it's V2G. Okay. Before we go to this, any problem you pursue with this different number of batteries with different number of DC-DC converters? What problems you think it will be there? If you have multiple batteries and multiple DC-DC converters, what sort of problems you can envisage?
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello. So one small doubt before that. So in this diagram which you are showing, here battery is being used as a source for recharging the battery. What is load here? Is load the different number of batteries? What is load here?
No, load can be anything. Whatever load is connected to the grid, that can be load.
Okay. So it's any load. Okay. ठीक है. Okay.
Okay, so if I have multiple batteries and multiple DC-DC converters, what sort of challenges I can have? Okay, let's take a case of 1200 volt, 150 ampere hour, or a 150 ampere IGBT pack, dual IGBT pack. That will cost you roughly about 2000 rupees. Okay, but if you want to buy a standard gate driver card, that will cost you about 6500 rupees. So gate drivers are pretty costly, first of all. And higher the number of converters you want to have, separate gate drivers will be required because each battery is unique. Each battery may not have same level of state of charge. Each battery may not, it's like one battery is like 80% charge, one is like 20% charge, and the charging modes are different. So gating signals for the DC-DC converter are different. That's why you will require more and more gate driver cards. So cost will increase, component count will increase, complexity is going to increase. So again, we are at the same, what we are discussing, that when our vehicle is idle, let's say most of the time when we are going to our offices, our vehicles are going to be parked. Similarly, at night time, the vehicles are going to be parked. Okay. How can we make use of this vehicle when it is idle, right? That is where the answer to this, all this is V2G. How can we have V2G? How can V2G help us to make use of our idle EV batteries? So battery, as we were discussing this, right? How to make this interact with the grid. So we talked about decentralized batteries, reducing cost of the microgrids. What if a microgrid is there that does have battery, but it does not have to incur the cost? So decentralized batteries, microgrids which reduce battery cost, that's what we can have. If we have V2G, how can we give? See, no one will supply his energy back to the grid free of cost. There has to be some economic incentives. So how can we bring in the economic incentives? And how can power trading takes place there? So this is the concept of V2G. Let's assume this is your electric vehicle. It has a battery, right? You have a charging port, or what you say, V2G unit at your home. You will put your vehicle in the parking lot, connect it to your connect the vehicle to your V2G unit, right? V2G unit is again connected to the your home, right? There's a meter box, and then the connection goes to the grid. Okay. So now the concept starts like this. You have connected to V2G. V2G unit will wait. It will sense what is the state of charge of your battery. Okay, first it will collect that at night. Let's assume you are at home, so I'll say at night. Next morning, it knows that now the state of charge is 60%. Next day, you have to go to your college and you require, let's say, 10% SOC. Usually, based on the cloud, it will collect the data and it will know, okay, at least minimum 20% SOC will be required. At that time, it checked what is the tariff. The tariff, let's say, 6 rupees per unit. Okay. It will start sending the energy back to the grid. Okay. Grid is in a position to take the energy. It will start sending the energy back to the grid. When it senses the tariff has fallen down, let's say in the small hours, the tariff is around, let's say, 4 rupee per unit. That time it will start charging the vehicle. So you are discharging the vehicle at higher cost, charging at lower cost, right? So that's how it works. Plus there's one cap. It should not be like you go to the college and you put into V2G port and you start supplying it to the grid, and when you come back at 5 p.m. and you check, the battery is at zero power. Okay, battery is fully discharged. Not like that. One way is you set the limit. Okay, battery SOC should be minimum 40%. That's all. Or you leave it to an AI algorithm which will track your movement every day. There is a cloud. It will track your movement. It will check what is the traffic pattern. It will check at that day what is going to happen, and based on that it will set, right, how much state of charge should be required. During my postdoc, I met with quite a few people who were working on this. They were working on collecting the data from each and every vehicle, checking their driving patterns, how they drive, which ways they take, right? And on what day the driving pattern, how the driving pattern is on different days. Let's say on some days you are taking a detour, right? Every Tuesday you are visiting some place. Might be you are visiting temple, or you are going out for a food and hanging out with your friends and then going back to your home. So it will find out that pattern. At the same time, it will be linked with the GPS. It will try to find out what is the traffic on that day. Is it a traffic jam? More energy will be required. Some predictive algorithms will be involved in this. So this is how it will be there. You have your battery, you have your DC-DC converter inside your vehicle, right? And that can be used. Okay, that vehicle, it's that this DC-DC converter and your battery in the vehicle, they themselves can be used. So no need of special DC-DC converter. That can be one of the options. Even inverter inside your vehicle, that itself can be used if you have transformer outside, right? Because this inverter inside the vehicle is designed to deal with 48 volts, 52 volts, or 300 volt DC, something in that range. Not in hello, not in the 600 volt DC range. So you need to have transformer for that. So this will reduce the cost of DC-DC converter, what we were talking. the cost for microgrid, the cost of the battery also is reduced. So two things are required for V2G, DC-DC converters and inverters. So why DC-DC converters are required? As I said, in this case, right, here your battery voltage might be 300 volts, 48 volts, 300 volts in that range, DC. Okay, let's say this is 48 volts or 300 volts here. So your inverter here requires, if you want to integrate with the grid, it will require something like 750 volts. Okay, considering there are some line losses in the cable, 750 volts will be required. So this DC-DC converter will step up the DC voltage from 48 volt to 750 volt. Then this 750 volt will be converted to AC here by the inverter. So two types of DC-DC converters are commonly reported: synchronous buck rectifier, this is a DC-DC converter, or synchronous buck DC-DC converter also is the other name, and dual active bridge DC-DC converter. So synchronous buck rectifier, if I talk about it, it will be something like this. It is nothing but your normal standard buck converter what you have, but that diode, that freewheeling diode is replaced by a switch, by an IGBT switch. Okay. So there from one side, if you go, it's a buck converter, from other side it's a boost converter. But as you know, in buck and boost converter there are some limitations. Okay, even though we say for boost converter output voltage V0 is equal to V in upon 1 minus D, and if you keep D as 0, it will be V0 is equal to V in, and D is equal to Z1, we get infinite at DC voltage, but that is not the practical case. Okay, the DC voltage is the boost factor is limited to 2, because above that the parasitic elements will have significant effect, right, and you cannot go to very high ranges. How can we overcome this? We can overcome this with the help of high frequency transformer. Once your transformer in a DC-DC converter, right, you can step up and step down the voltage. So this barrier is gone now. But the question arises, if there is a transformer, there has to be AC supply, and we are talking about DC-DC converter. So dual active bridge, let's see this. So here you have U in, which is your DC. Okay, this is your DC supply. Output is U out, which is again your DC supply. So what you will do, you will convert your DC to high frequency AC here. You will get high frequency AC here at the output. Then that high frequency is switched to a transformer. This is high frequency ferrite core transformer. The size is pretty small, it's pretty compact design. Then again you have this IGBT switches which can again convert into DC. So power can flow in this direction and power can flow in this direction as well. So whether you want to charge, let's say at U in you have your battery B, and here you have your VSI, DC link of your VSI. Okay. So you can send the power from the VSI, can act as an active power factor correction unit and convert AC to DC, make it available here at U out. This will be used to charge the battery B. Otherwise, battery can act as a source. It can supply here DC, and this can be fed to the grid. So different modes of charging are there. In dual active bridge, both the sides are active, right? Here the bridge is active, here the bridge is active. You can have bidirectional power flow. Here the duty cycle is fixed at 50%. Okay, you are not going to play with duty cycle. The only thing is phase shift between these two sides. By controlling the switches of T1 to T4 and T5 to T8, you are going to control the phase shift. Here two AC voltages are going to be there. You are going to control the phase shift between these two AC voltages, and by controlling the phase shift you can control the flow of power. That is the uniqueness of this dual active bridge. Now coming to voltage source inverter, right? Because when we talk about PLL phase lock loop has a role to play in this voltage source inverters. So why voltage source inverters are required in the first place? One is grid synchronization. It has to do grid synchronization. It has to control the flow of power, right? Because when we talk about voltage source inverter, naturally it has to control the flow of power from the DC link towards the AC side. And when you connect the inverter to the grid, it has to follow some grid codes, right? If I talk about distributed energy resource, there is a IEEE standard 1547. We have to adhere to that grid code. What should be the THD level? Okay, when you are connecting a distributed energy resource through a voltage source inverter to the grid, we have to take care that the currents being injected to the grid, right, they are not having THD in excess of 5%. Otherwise, we'll have power quality issues. Secondly, when you are connecting a distributed energy resource through an inverter to the grid, before 2018, the grid codes mandated that only active power can be supplied to the grid. Right? So only active power can be supplied to the grid. That means power factor had to be unity. Power factor had to be unity means your displacement factor has to be, means the current has to be in phase with the supply voltages, plus your distortions, current and voltage distortion should be minimum. Right? So different such things were there which came into picture. So inverter is required for all these things, right? We'll be discussing this.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Excuse me, sir. May I interrupt, sir? So there is a small question, basic question. When you are converting this power from 48 volt to the higher voltage from battery to the inverter, so as a principle of energy conservation, you cannot create a high energy for the low energy unless you spend something. So what are you losing here in this case? Like when you are supplying from the battery 48 volt to the higher voltage with the to converter, you have to lose something. What are we at? What cost we are achieving this?
See, power is going to remain constant, right, on both sides. This is nothing but something like a DC transformer. So P in is equal to P out, barring few losses occurring inside the switches, let's say conduction or switching loss and losses in the transformer. So only thing is there are current levels are going to change. Okay. So when I am stepping up my voltage to such a high level, my current is going to be very small. That is one of the feature that's going to come into picture. So rather than having one battery or one electric vehicle, it may happen that there are n number of batteries. Let's say 5-6 electric vehicle have a here. Here, this is one electric vehicle and one DC link. But we can have multiple electric vehicles connected to the common DC link here. So multiple batteries will be connected to common DC link. That's how we'll have a entire charging plant for this.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
So this is what dual active bridge is nothing but going to act like a DC-DC, like a transformer. Only thing is, it is going to allow to us to change the levels of DC. But naturally, same principle what we apply in normal our AC transformers, right? Power transfer, same are going to apply. The powers are going to remain the same at input and output, barring the losses. Okay. So if we are going to go for higher voltage, the current is going to be reduced. We'll be talking about need of voltage source inverter. Let's try to see. We are going to connect our voltage source inverter for V2G, the grid. Okay. So when we are connecting the voltage source, the inverters to the grid, we call it point of common coupling, where the grid, VCC and the loads are going to be connected. So when I'm going to connect the inverter, the same rule which applies to parallel operation of alternators applies here, right? The inverter frequency should match with the grid frequency. Our distributed, this is going to be our distributed energy resource, DR. Okay. And this can never be the master. The master is always going to be your grid. So grid will always going to be your master. So grid decides the frequency, grid decides the voltage level. So the inverter frequency at the output of inverter should match with the grid frequency. The phase of the inverter voltages should match with the grid voltages. At the same time, the voltage levels should be matching. But we have to take care when you connect inverter to the grid, you have to take care. There are going to be some losses. You are never going to connect inverter directly here. There is going to be some passive filters. Okay, some cables are going to be there. Some losses are going to take place in the cable, the impedance of the cable. Some losses are going to take place in the passive. Some voltage drop, not losses will take place, but voltage drop is the key issue. Some voltage drop will take place in your cable. Some, like your inductors in your passive element, will have some resistance, right? It's not ideal inductor. Some voltage drop will take place. So you have to take care of all those things. Okay. So this inverter requires, if you want to connect this inverter to the grid, the frequency of the inverter should be same as the grid frequency. The phase angle of the voltages should be same as the grid voltages. The voltage, the amplitude should be same. So that means I can control my inverter as per this requirement only and only if I have data from the grid. I need to have grid frequency Fg. I need to have phase angle theta g. Okay. So these things are required, right? So my PLL, my synchronization requires a PLL which will determine this data. The role of PLL is to determine this data. So what is the functionality of this inverters in V2G? It has to feed active power to the grid while respecting grid codes. What strategy it is employed? How can we control? Inverter is made up of switches. Those power electronic switches require some control signal. Some gate pulses will be required. But in which order or which fashion will be giving the gate pulses, right? We have to give gate pulses such that the inverter is synchronism with the grid. Inverter supplies power. It is synchronized with the grid. The power is having the currents being injected are having the same frequency and same phase angle as that of the grid voltages. So for that, the control strategy used is voltage oriented control. I forgot. Did you have a lecture on vector control of PMSM? As a part of this FDP, did you have vector control?
So specifically, we do not have any lecture on vector control, but
Hello.
Hello.
I just had a query. Vector control has already been covered.
We know vector control very well because we had in the PG level, we studied vector control during the PG courses.
Okay, so just yeah, definitely we all have studied, but I just wanted to know if it has been covered in this session in this FDP or not.
Yeah, voltage oriented control, sir. We know voltage oriented control, grid voltage oriented control, stator flux oriented control. So such kind of vector oriented control strategy we already know.
Okay, it has been covered. Okay, fine. Then I will just dwell into some small aspects only. So when we talk about an inverter, let's not talk about EV battery, but if you want a PV or you want a wind generator to connect to the grid, inverter is the integral element because it is going to facilitate the flow of power from DR to the grid bus or load. It has to ensure grid synchronization. Your PLL can detect, help it, provide it the signals or data, but inverter is the one which implements grid synchronization. At the same time, inverter is the one which ensures that grid codes are adhered to. So for this, when we talk about these adherence or synchronization or flow of power, control of flow of power, voltage oriented control is employed. It is similar to field oriented control or vector control. Okay. FOC is used for speed control of motors. VOC is used for speed control of grid tied inverters. FOC consists of outer speed loop and two inner current control loops. VOC consists of outer DC link voltage loop and two inner current control loops. FOC controls DQ axis currents to regulate the rotor speed. VOC controls DQ axis currents to regulate the DC link voltage. So if we know VOC, right, VOC is employed for control of grid tied inverters or even PWM rectifiers. So when we talk about control of inverters, this translates to control of grid tied inverters. So if we know VOC properly, we can work with PV energy system, that is renewable energy, wind energy system, that is again renewable energy, shunt active power filters and unified power quality conditioners, that is UPQC. We can work with fault ride through, we can work with V2G. So once we master VOC, we can work with all these areas. Just to share an experience of mine, I did my PhD in electric vehicles. It was propulsion system. How to control the speed of a vehicle, right? Because vehicle is going to have many different, driving patterns. We cannot predict all patterns. So how your controllers will behave and how to make an intelligent system. So when I started my postdoc, I was introduced to VOC. So how I learned VOC, I always compared them and tried to understand. So that can be one of the better way of understanding those who are from the drives domain. So VOC provides the control signals for inverters to facilitate the flow of power from DR to the grid. It is critical. VOC requires phase information of the grid voltages. So it's critical to have that, otherwise grid synchronization cannot be achieved. So I've taken an example of photovoltaic system, right? A grid tied PV system. This I incorporate specially so that we can take a break from electric vehicles and think on other domains as well. So I'll just explain this system. This is a PV array. Okay. And after we have done this, we'll explain if EV was there, what changes we'll bring into the system. So one is PV array. So we are connecting PV array to the grid. PV, of course, it will have DC. Output of the PV array is DC. So that DC has to be converted to AC, and I am connecting it to the grid. So again, our AC system, whatever we have, AC supply of the inverter, I'll require some passive elements, some passive filters. So these are my passive elements. Of course, these days we are going for LCL filters for grid integration, and I'm connecting to grid. Okay. I'm having some non-linear and linear loads here. So this is my VOC. This inside that this pink or purple box, the color depending on your resolution you're seeing, is my VOC. Okay. So how does VOC work? I have my reference value of D axis current. So this is based on this DQ when we talk about this SRF theory, synchronous reference frame theory. What does this theory do? We are transforming our ABC components into DQ components. Okay. So these DQ component, D represents our active component and Q represents our reactive component. Okay, why we wanted to transfer from AC to DC quantities, DQ or DC quantities? Can anyone help me with this? Why we are going from three-phase AC quantities to this DC quantities?
Sir, actually, in case of ABC coordinates, we have a time varying quantities. So,
My apologies. I think someone tried to say something, but sorry, I could not hear.
Sir, in ABC coordinates, we have a time varying quantities, like all the voltages, current, as well as flux linkages are time varying. When we transfer those time varying quantities to a frame which is linked to a frequency, synchronous frequency, then all those quantities become a DC quantity.
Yes, sir, absolutely agreed with you.
So in that case, it will be very easy, first of all, to control those quantities as well as to decouple those quantities.
Okay.
So
first thing is, when you talk about AC, is phase, frequency, and amplitude. 3 quantities I have to control. 3 phase, 3 into 3, 9 quantities will be there. When I come to DC, only 2 quantities are there because there's only amplitude, no frequency and phase is there. Second aspect, from our power system or power electronics aspect, whatever we think is okay. But from control aspect, one more problem was there, PI controller. PI controllers are designed to work with DC quantities only. PI controllers do not work with AC quantities. If you want to work with AC quantities, we need to go for PR controller, proportional resonant controllers. And PI, if you write a code in STM or TI platform, it will be code will be hardly of 3-4 lines. Okay, only thing is that you have to make a variable which will save the integral factor. When you integrate it, you have to save it, continuous summation. That is the only thing. So it is only 3-4 lines. But when you go for PR, proportional resonant controller, it will be the code will be pretty huge, because when we make a proportional resonant controller in S domain, it's very easy. But when we go to discrete time domain, the code will be pretty long and a lot of memory will be used. So to avoid that, PI is there, and PI works with DC quantities. In addition to what sir said, these are the additional features. You have lesser number of variables to control, plus because DC quantity is there, PI can be easily employed. Okay, why? I'm just talking about some practical aspect. Why I said about the the number of instructions I have to execute, because higher the number of instructions I have to execute, higher is my time taken, right, for the entire algorithm. I want my algorithm to be compact. The reason is lowest number of time means my sampling frequency can be better. I can go for higher sampling frequencies, higher switching frequencies, right? Higher switching frequency means my filters will be more, passive elements will be more and more compact. So that is why we go for this. In processor, we may think that, okay, only this algorithm is there, but our processors will have many other cycles. They will scan the peripherals. There are some other communication protocols which are working in the background. So it will take more time like that. So that is one of the reasons we went for this. So we have got D axis current and we have got Q axis current. D axis current represents the active component of current. Q axis component represents the reactive component of current. I have made reference value of Q axis current 0 because I don't want to send any reactive power. So I will take my 3 currents right here, IFA, IFB, IFC. I will feed them to ABC to DQ transform. The output is DQ components, IFD and IFQ. Okay. These are the reference values. For Q it is 0. For D I am getting from this MPPT algorithm. What does MPPT algorithm do? It will take the voltage and current of the PV array. It will find out at what voltage should be maintained across the PV array so that maximum power is transferred. As we know, the efficiency of PV panel is pretty poor, right? Less 15% and even less, depending on the time of the day. So we want to extract maximum power. So I'll compare with the actual voltage with this MPP voltage, maximum voltage corresponding to maximum power point. I'll get some error which I'll process with PI controller, and this is the current. If I maintain this much current is drawn from the PV array, then these two voltages will be matching. So I got my D axis current, Q axis current is 0. I'll compare with the actual values. I'll get some errors. They'll be fed to PI controllers. These PI controllers will try to process these errors and try to determine the value of voltage. If this much voltage is maintained across the inverter output, then if these two currents match, if these two voltages maintain, then these two currents will be matching. Okay, and the current error is reduced to 0. Okay, so you got VD star and VQ star. You did some decoupling control. You added these quantities or subtracted these quantities. Then these are two VD and VQ are DC quantities. Okay, VD and VQ are DC quantities. You want to convert them to AC quantities. Why? Because inverter only talks in terms of AC quantities. So I could do DQ to ABC transform. So I got three reference values. These are analog sinusoidal signals. Okay, but my inverter only understands digital language. 1 0. 1 means switch is on, 0 means switch is off. Okay, in DSP it will be 3.3 volt and 0 volt. So I have to convert this to gating pulses. So I'll use some SPWM or space vector modulation or some techniques I'll use. So according to you, when we analyze this theory, what is the key component? What is the heart of this control system? Which is the new thing in this control system, which is not usually encountered in normal control systems? Okay, any random guess in this?
Information of the grid frequency, sir.
Okay, information of grid is there, but in terms of this control diagram, I'm saying.
This is very well-known control diagram.
This ABC to DQ transform. Okay. This is something key because it is going to transform ABC quantities into DQ reference frame. So these are undoubtedly every component is important, but this is something called heart of this control technique, ABC to DQ. What was the input to this? The three-phase quantities was the input. Two outputs I got plus this theta was there. What is this theta? This theta is the information about the phase angle of the A phase voltage. So I have to take three-phase voltages VSA, VSB, VSC, feed it to a phase lock loop. Output of the phase lock loop is theta. Okay. Output of the phase lock loop is theta. This is the what we call it Vm sine omega t. That is this is theta is nothing but the omega t. Okay. So if this theta estimation is wrong, this voltage related control will not work properly. So our key concern now is how to get the value of theta. For that PLL is required. So just going to this is photovoltaic system. If I replace this with a battery, what all changes will be there? First, MPPT will go out of picture. Okay, MPPT will go out of picture. Battery naturally, as soon as I cannot connect battery directly, there will be a DC-DC converter involved between the DC link of the inverter and the battery. Okay, so now I need to control the discharging of the battery. How much discharge of the battery? So this ID will be governed by that. Okay, IQ will still be 0. ID I will govern. Okay, my battery SOC is 100%. I can go till 80% SOC. That is fine. What should be the current now? The current should be such that the battery is not damaged. Okay, based on that I can decide the current. Plus, undoubtedly, I have to take grid into account. That all changes will be taken into consideration. Okay, so even in this, theta will play a pivotal role here because theta is required. Okay, so based on this, let's go ahead. How to know the theta? So when we talk about this, grid synchronization refers to interconnection of distributed resource with the grid, while ensuring that phase frequency and magnitude and phase sequence of the incoming voltage matches with the grid voltage. So we have magnitude that DC link control has to take care of that. Okay, phase angle is there, magnitude is fixed. We'll consider the freehand. phase and frequency. Frequency varies. We cannot consider it as fixed. Phase, it is instantaneous. We have to take that into consideration. Phase sequence. I have added this because once I was working grid-tied inverters 2 years back with a small inverter that we have made. And first time one of the students started and the inverter burned. So first my thought process was something is wrong with the code. I checked all the protection, they were fine. I went to the code is fine, there is nothing wrong. Only thing wrong was when the voltages were given to the DSP card, okay, the ADC pins were interchanged. That is why phase sequence, once you are making the hardware setup, it is very important that we check the phase sequence. That is where we make the mistake most of the time. So these things are there. Phase and frequency are the instantaneous quantities that I need to know. Okay. When I know phase and frequency, I can also know the magnitude. So grid synchronization refers to determination of phase frequency of the grid voltages. Okay. How to know the phase and frequency of the grid voltages? So they are commonly determined by two techniques: phase lock loop. Okay. SRF PLL is there, and second order generalized integrator is there. These are the two methods are there. Okay, again, people call it as SOGI PLL. Okay, it is part of PLL again, but it is based on SOGI method. So when we talk about grid synchronization, synchronous reference frame based phase lock loop for grid synchronization involves ABC to DQ0 transformation. Again, what we did last time, same thing is repeated. D axis of voltage represents the in phase component. Q axis voltage represents the quadrature component. Grid voltage has no quadrature component, so if the frequency and phase angle are accurately estimated, Q axis component is 0. Okay, this involves instantaneous computation. Okay. By instantaneous computation, I mean after every 15,000, 1 by 15,000 seconds, you will try to measure, or after every 1 by 20,000 seconds, depending on your switching frequency or sampling rates, your DSP will calculate this again and again. So how does this ABC to DQ0 transformation work? Okay. These equations are followed from the book by PC Cross. So these are the three inputs: VA, VB, VC. This will get from the voltage sensor. These are the two outputs, VD of t and VQ of t, because they are instantaneous values. These are the DC quantities here, and here are my AC quantities. Okay, here are my AC quantities. There is one more input, that is theta. My PLL must find out what is the value of theta. So what is VD and VQ? There are two simple equations are there. They are mentioned here. Based on these two simple equations, we can find out the value of VD and VQ. Okay. How to know the value of theta as per SRF PLL? Okay. So these are the three inputs. My sensors will sense VA, VB, VC. I will process them by a biasing circuit, give it to my DSP processor. Again, inside DSP processors, because our DSP processor work usually from 0 to 3.3 volt, offset will be added by the biasing circuit. That offset has to be removed inside the code. I got VA, VB, VC. I will perform the two equations. Initially, my theta is some random guess, let's say some initial value output. So I will get my VQ. Okay, it will be definitely an erroneous value. VQ will be there. If my theta is correct, VQ should be 0. If my theta is correct, VQ should be 0. That's why my reference value of VQ is 0. So 0 is my reference value. So 0 minus VQ I will do. Okay. So 0 minus VQ. This VQ is here. Okay. So instead of doing 0 minus VQ, I just multiplied VQ with -1 here. Whatever output was there, I fed it to a PI controller. If you are using MATLAB, MATLAB has inbuilt model, but I'll still and they have given auto tuning feature. Something like KP comes down to 180 and KI comes down to 3200. Okay, you process with a PI controller and you get output is omega 2 pi f frequency you got. My suggestion is, rather than doing this directly, you put like this. Okay, you make an addition here and put here a block, constant block, and this is your omega, right? 314.159, what we get. So now PI controller has to deal with only what all variations are there. Initial value is available with us. Okay, so you got omega, that is frequency. Integral omega is theta. So this loop will keep on going. It is not like first attempt you will get. If we do in simulation, you will get it within a few milliseconds. Okay, But if you do in hardware, this is the challenge I faced when I was doing my postdoc. When I did on hardware, I found it's taking 3-4 seconds, or not 3-4 seconds, minutes, 3-4 minutes it was taking to settle down. The reason was this: in simulation, when we start our simulation, everything is at 0 seconds. Okay, try to start this PLL at some non-zero seconds. After some time has elapsed, you try to start this. Then it will take more time. Any doubts in this PLL structure, or anything you would like to discuss in this PLL structure?
Sir, you have simulated this PLL structure separately or along with the controller?
Both have done.
Because sometimes it is really very difficult initially if somebody wants to make a VOC block in a MATLAB, then
Yeah.
where will be the error? It will be very difficult because here so many PI controllers are there. So where to start tuning a PI controller?
Okay, great question. The best way to start, if you want to make a grid tied system, best way to start is make a grid and connect it to a load. First sense the voltages and make a PLL. That will be your first step. Then go for, like yesterday we were dealing with a UPQC. We were trying to make a UPQC, and my partner made the entire simulation, and then we had a tough time debugging. So I was telling the same thing. First, always go with the PLL structure, and then go ahead with the entire VOC.
सर आपके स्क्रीन पे साइड पे अंकित सर का दिखेगा, वो आपको मिनिमाइज करना पड़ेगा.
बस सर तमाम देखा है.
Second thing, what new things we can work on? What challenges can come in PLL? One is this PI. Okay, whatever you do the tuning of this PI, it is done for certain conditions, right? When our voltages may not be balanced, when we are working with grid tied system, or grid voltages may be unbalanced or distorted, this PI operation is greatly affected by that. Okay, when I'll simulate this for you, that time I will show you how it is affected. Okay, so can we design a new controller which can take care of these distortions? That is one of the thing. Then this integration part. Okay, sometimes offset may come into picture. Okay, offset may be made very small. Can we make a better integrator? Because integrating in S domain is fine, but when you shift the integration to Z domain, discrete time domain, that time some errors creep in. Right? How to overcome that? So this can be the two challenging aspects. Right? For fast paper publication, if you want to go, this is the best area to work. Right? Just to tell you, you need to buy just 3 voltage sensors and 1 DSP card and 1 oscilloscope. And lot of papers are there in this. If you check Professor Joseph Guerrero's papers, he has done extensive work on SOGI. That is a type of PLL. Right? Lot of conditions can be made with this PLL. So that is one of the aspects can work on. Can I integrate AI and ML in this PI? That is what my team is currently working on. Can we have this PI help AI and ML with that? Can we tune this PI so that it can take care of distortion and unbalanced voltages, negative sequence voltages? This is how the output will look like. This is your 3-phase balance voltages. These are your voltage determined, unit voltage template, what we call, and this is a theta. You can see for A phase, right? It starts at 0, goes to 6.28 something, and then it resets. So that's how your output voltage wins. Output of PL will look like theta. So what are problems? As I said, complicated in terms of computations because PI is involved. More than PIC, sin theta, cos theta comes for a DSP processor. It takes a lot of trouble because you have to go for IQ math formatting. Once we were doing, and I found out that our execution time is in milliseconds, like some 200-300 milliseconds, and my cycle is just 20 milliseconds. The only error I found, one of the student had done, he had used sin theta instead of using the IQ format. So that is what problem is. PI tuning for different conditions. Trigonometric functions include more cycles. So we thought of an algorithm which is pretty simple, and it ended up being similar to SOGI. We call it band pass low pass filter algorithm. Okay, it can provide the information about phase, frequency, and amplitude, and you can simulate this in 15-20 minutes. That's all this algorithm requires. So this is how algorithm looks. Okay, this is x of t. Okay, remember we want to know the theta. That is our main aim. So this can be your signal. Let's say VA of t. X of t is nothing but V of t. You process it through a band pass filter. Okay, Band pass filter will give you the component without any phase shift, fundamental component without any phase shift, that is XP. That's why I call it in phase component. I will proceed it through a low pass filter then. I will design low pass filter to include a phase shift of minus 90 degree. So I have this in phase, that is sine component. I have this XQ, that is 90 degree phase shifted cosine component. So I've got sine and cosine fundamental components. I will do XQ square, I will do XP square, add them and root it. This is the peak amplitude of the fundamental component. Okay. Similarly, I know the peak amplitude. What is XP? XP is nothing but XM1 sine theta. XQ is nothing but XM1 cos theta. So I know XP, I know XQ. I will just divide that. Okay. XP by XM1, which I already found out. I will get sine theta and cos theta. That is what we wanted to know, sine theta and cos theta, right? Based on sine theta and cos theta, we can know theta. Tan inverse sine by cos, we'll get the tan theta. Okay. So this is just 3 steps. Okay. You can find out the fundamental component of voltage. You can do this for current. Those who are working in active filters or UPQC, even it can be used for that. Okay. So any doubts in this? I'll then shift to simulations. Or anything you'd like to discuss. Doubt may not be right word, or even for discussion, something you'd like to state. Okay. So let's I'm using PSIM demo version. It's freely available. Okay. So which method you like to go first, SRF or LPF BPF?
SRF.
Sir, how much time is available with me?
Sir, you can continue, no problem.
So which PLL you like to go?
425 you can continue.
Okay. Okay, let's go for SRF PLL. Okay. So I will select the peak amplitudes. Let's say single phase 325 peak amplitude I put 213 to root 2. I will introduce a phase shift of minus 120 degree for B phase. Again, I will introduce a phase shift of minus 240 for C phase. So I have got my 3-phase supply ready with me. Okay. Then I need to convert ABC to DQ. The simulation screen is visible?
Yeah, perfectly.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yes.
So I will go here, others. There's functional blocks are available, ABC to DQ0. You can connect that. So now I have got ABC to DQ0. Okay. Now what I want to work with, I want to work with Q. Okay. But if you'll follow the equations which I showed in my slides, these equations and the equations inside this block are not matching. Okay, so I follow in a different way. Here, according D and Q, I will interchange. Okay, for me, Q is D, so I will just write it here, and D is Q. Okay, this is the only confusing part we have to bear with. So this is my D component. I'll place it here, and this is my Q component. I'll place it here. Okay. So what we had to do? We had to do VQ minus 0. 0 minus VQ, that is nothing but multiplying by minus 1. So I'll multiply by this by minus 1. Then I have to put a PI controller. Okay. So now this PI controller will try to make this value 0. So what should be the frequency of PI controller so that this value is 0? Remember, if you're working in MATLAB and you're trying to shift to PSIM, then you have to keep in mind that here it's not KP and KI, but KP and TI. So it is KP by KI, you have to write. You got here. You'll get your frequency 2 pi f at the output. So this PI will try to select frequency such that input to the PI is 0. Okay. So you got PI. Then, as I said, I don't want to work with PI over from 0 to 314.159 range. I will add a component here so that PI has to just make small modifications rather than a change. So here I will add what is our 2 pi f, that is 314.159. I got, then I will integrate it. So my frequency is now here. Okay, integral of frequency I have to find out. So I'll go here, select an integrator. All these blocks are available in MATLAB. Time constant as 1, lower limit as 0, upper limit I will calculate it as 2 pi. So 2 into, sorry, this is my upper limit. Okay, now, so I'll select the scopes. This is my frequency and this is my theta. I'll call it frequency and I'll call this as theta. And let's keep one scope here which will measure my value of VA. Okay, I'll go to simulate, simulation control, put it here. I'll select the time. Let's say I want to run it for 0.2 seconds. It being a demo version, I have some limitation on that. Okay, the answer is going to be wrong. First of all, when I run this, I have made some mistake. Can anyone tell me what is the exact mistake here?
Frequency has to be subtracted.
Anyone can help me with this? I'll just show you how the voltage looks. Okay, this is my voltage, A phase voltage. Okay, and this is my theta. Okay, see, theta is completely wrong. Okay, it starts from 0, goes to 6.28, means 2 pi when the cycle completes. Okay, the reason is I have to put normalization here. I have to normalize the values. Okay, so I'll put it 1 by 325 and normalize. These PI constants are tuned for those values. Okay, let's run it again. Okay, it's saturated here. Okay, can you tell me why it's saturated here? The reason was the integrator that we selected. The integrator upper limit is there. Okay, if I don't keep this upper limit, what problem will occur in my DSP? It will be overflow error. So I cannot use the integrator directly as it is. Okay, so I have to select some different type of integrator. Okay, that is resetable integrator. Okay, so I'll select a resetable integrator. Lower limit, again same thing I'll do, make it 0. Upper limit, I mean this 6.28 something. Are you able to see the waveforms? Right, it starts at 0, it goes to 6.28. When the cycle completes, it resets again. Okay. Now let's try to introduce unbalance and try to see what will happen.
Sir, why did you add this K with all the sources, this normalization? Why did you do this?
Okay, my PI is tuned for normalized values. That's the main thing. When we tune PI for a certain range, so my range was always normalized values. That was the only reason.
Okay. No, so where from you get the value 1 by 325?
Actually, 1 by 325. Okay. This is my peak value is 325, right?
Okay. Sorry, sir. Sorry.
No issues. But it's good that we are discussing. I always like interactions.
You have normalized. You have used PI controller parameter for the per unit system, I think.
Yeah.
That is the reason.
It's easier for me to tune my PI. That's the only thing.
Sir, could you please show VD waveform also?
Sure. Okay, this is my VQ and this is my VD. Okay, now I'll introduce unbalance. Right? Let's first make it balanced so that you can see the VD and VQ waveforms. Then I'll introduce unbalance. Fine. This is because a minus sign is there. This comes inverse. So I have to put a block here. See, VD is now 1. Okay, if you can see, can you see the axis? VD is 1. That means all 325 volt is D and Q is 0. These are the type of waveforms I'll get. Now let's try to see what will happen if I introduce unbalance. Let me make it peak amplitude of A phase, reduce it by 100, 225. Okay, I'll run it again. And now we'll see what is actually happening. You see, it is not able to track. Okay, because now the voltages are unbalanced. This is one of the key problems that we'll face. Okay. So let me show you where the problem is starting. The problem starts here in frequency. Right? If you see in frequency, the main problem starts. So how can we solve this? I'll go to my FFT curve. Okay, sorry, because of this, it's not showing the full curve, but what I'll do, I will try to introduce a band stop filter here. In this, I will introduce a band stop filter. So they are also available here in filters. I'll get a band stop filter. Mainly second harmonics is coming into picture at the output of PI. So I'll introduce a band stop filter here. So I have to stop my second harmonics from coming into picture. So I'll say 200. Let's see again how the frequency changes. It became better, but I cannot say that it will be perfectly fine. So unbalance is one of the issue that we are going to face. Similarly, distortion will come into picture. Same problem will occur as well. So the PLL needs to be designed in that fashion then.
Hello?
Yeah?
Hello?
Yes, I'm able to hear you. Can I go ahead with the other one, LPF BPF method?
Sir, you
Yes.
have given
Yes, sir.
asymmetrical fault.
Actually, I
Hello,
believe
sir.
a couple of
Wait,
people
wait.
are speaking at the same time. I'm not able to comprehend. Okay, I will just try to make one more signal. Okay, let's see. Let's make a signal. Let's assume that this signal has been sensed, or distorted signal has been sensed, and let's try to see what the LPF BPF method can do. Okay, let's say again put it 325, 50. Okay, this is my fundamental. Let's bring in fifth harmonic of 250 frequency. Let's keep its amplitude as let's keep 10, and let's change this amplitude 100, and this is seventh harmonic. Again, I'll put it 10, and this is 50. So my seventh harmonic is 10, peak amplitude is 10, fifth harmonic 10, and fundamental is 100. Okay, so my THG is roughly 14.14%, and I have to find out the phase angle of this distorted voltage. So I will use LPF BPF method. So first I'll go and find out, take the band pass filter. Okay, put it here. Then I'll bring in a low pass filter. I'll put it here. I want my 50 hertz. I'll put it here. Again, I want 50 hertz. I'll put it here. I'll make the damping ratio 0.707 to get the, and this is 1.41 gain. So now I'll put it like this. 1, 2, and 3. This is my signal, V signal. This is the output of BPF, so I will say V underscore BPF. This is V underscore LPF. Again, go to simulate, simulation control. I'll run it for 0.2 seconds. Okay, this is how my signal looks. Okay, distorted. If you want no THD, I can find out THD for 50 Hertz. If okay, let's do it later. I'll add one more waveform, BPF and LPF. Right. See, initial time the filter is going to take. Let's go for some steady state. So I'll make it 0.4 second and start time as 0.2. And again. Now you see this red one is sine component, blue one is cos component. Okay, so I can easily now find out the magnitude by doing A tan. But you know, doing A tan is not that great. Okay, not that great idea, because in DSP it created a lot of issues when I was implementing it. That's why I don't go for it. What I do, I rather find out the magnitude. Okay. So I will find out like this, square, take square of those quantities. So it will be Vm square sine square theta, Vm square cos square theta. I'll add those quantities. I know this output of the square will be positive, but still I always prefer to keep a limiter. Okay, so that negative value, sometimes it gives error. If not here in DSP, I've encountered some error, so I put it, and this is, I don't care, upper limit. Okay, so I got the magnitude now. So let's call it magnitude. Run it again. So magnitude, right? Our magnitude is supposed to be 325. Something went wrong. It's okay. I have not done the square root. Elements, control, computational blocks, square root. Okay, sorry for this. Right, 100. So it is coming here. Right, still some problems are there. Let's try to see why it occurred. 50, 50, 20, and this is 51 point. Okay, this is what the amplitude we got. Now this amplitude divided by this, one of the reasons is that we need to increase the step time, then only better. Okay, now the variations are reduced. Okay, so you got the magnitude. This signal P-BPF divided by this magnitude will give you sine theta. V-BPF divided by this magnitude will give you sine theta. Okay, let me make this stiffer. Oh, it is not able to show the whole thing because of the limitation of the software, limitation of the demo version rather. But I hope you got the gist of this. You can take this value, that is the x VBPF divided by the magnitude will give you sine theta. Yeah, I think with this I have come to the end. Anything you would like to discuss about LPF BPF or this method of PLL or V2G, please let me know. right? The same thing I implemented, what I've shown here. That's all from my side. If you would like to have a discussion or collaborate on any of the work or join what work we are doing, please feel free to send me an email. Thank you for your patient listening. Thank you, Dr. Chudasma and your institute for giving me a chance to share my thoughts. Thank you very much. Over to you, Dr. Chudasma.
Sir, what is the band pass filter setting? Can you show me the BPF setting?
A band pass filter setting, if you want to talk about we go with, because we want a 50 hertz signal, so our center frequency has to be 50 hertz and our pass band should be as small as possible. 10 is fine, 20 or 10 is fine.
Okay, so that will give you the XM sin theta.
It will give XM sin theta, yes.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
I hope I have finished on time.
Sir, I have a doubt.
Yeah.
Suppose if you have other grid disturbances like harmonics and then DC offset and similarly unsymmetrical fault, for everything, like the frequency should change or sorry, the filter frequency should change, or we can
Yes,
keep it the
yes.
same
The
only?
next step is the adaptive. See, if the grid frequency changes, then it is going to be affected. But not for everything, frequency need not change. Okay, if your grid frequency changes, then the filter frequency has to change.
Okay.
So already I told you that what all problems are there, right, in this. So you can go ahead and try to find solution to the problem that will give you a good platform for a publication. One of my student, she has developed a new third and fourth order hybrid generalized integrator. So when she started the work, she told me the same thing, that she wants publication fast, but she was not happy with SOGI and PLL in this domain. She wanted something big like grid-tied wind energy conversion system. But looking at the current pandemic situation and how students are not able to come to college, I suggested her that you better go with this, because the only thing you need is a sensor and a couple of oscilloscopes, 3 sensors, and just one small DSP card or STM card. Right? If you go to 28335 experimenter kit, roughly you can get it within 10,000, and STM board 2,500. So that gives you very easy scope for carrying out hardware validation very fast. And more than that, the greatest joy is when you see your simulation running in hardware, the idea getting validated. There is no other joy like that. So whether you want to connect a PV to the grid or V2G, or even if you want to go for G2V, if you want to go charge a battery, the rectifier at the beginning will be introducing a lot of harmonics into the grid. If you take a standard diode bridge rectifier feeding in the R load, the line current has a THD of 28% around. And this may deteriorate with the inclusion of DC link capacitor. So we are not using diode bridge rectifiers, but we are using PWM rectifiers. So again, PWM rectifiers also need PLL. So whether it's V2G, G2V, custom power devices, or your wind or solar generation, PLL is required everywhere. So if you write one paper on this, you can replicate the same work and check it for others. Any points to discuss?
Thank you very much, sir. Actually, I did work in a grid-tied wind energy conversion system. So initially, when I started work, all focus was on the control of the DFIP, and especially the the two converters in the rotor circuits. So I see this similar simulations also, and I use the PLL, simple PLL that you taught right now. Later on, I came to know that there are so many different versions of the PLL, and the people are working with the PLL. If the grid is, if there are the harmonics in the grid, there are the offsets in the grid. So this is my personal experience that I wanted to share.
You're absolutely correct that with wind energy conversion system, everyone, even when I tried with my first time with solar grid tied solar system during my postdoc, my entire focus was mainly on the implementation of VOC and direct power control so that I can control the power flowing from PV panel to the grid. And often PLL, I did not pay much attention, frankly speaking. But later when I analyzed more, I found out numerous publications are there in this area. And the scope is huge because our grid is very volatile. There are different conditions that we can encounter. So for different conditions, how the PLL reacts, that is a classic study that can be made. And there are pretty good papers on review of PLL, single phase PLL.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Especially in this COVID condition when we don't have much hardware available with us, this can be a good option.
In a wind energy conversion system, it will be very difficult to employ the hardware.
Yes, sir. It will be difficult.
Problem in case of yes.
Sir, if you want to make the direct power flow surrounding DC, so how do we scale and
I have
That's
seen
fine there. Yes, sir.
Yeah, means during my PhD time in IIT Delhi, I had seen the hardware of wind energy conversion system there.
So what, sir, what suggestions you give in order to validate the wind energy conversion system in laboratory?
Suggestions in the term, like I will prefer to go with PMSG first of all. And the challenge you will face is that in wind energy conversion system, you need to, if you want to test it for different frequencies and different voltage levels, that might be difficult for everyone. Because for frequency variation or phase jump, if you want to introduce that chroma power supply is required, which is pretty costly. So
Yes.
we can do for some limited conditions, like with auto transformer, we can reduce the voltage and check. For distortion, you can connect a you can connect a nonlinear load at the output of auto transformer and introduce a resistor so that the line impedance increases and because of that the drop increases. The drop due to the harmonics increases. So that can be tested.
Yes, sir. But will it be okay if we can validate it with the DSpace instead of building the whole energy conversion system?
DSpace can implement your control algorithm. If you want to implement your power circuit, that means turbine and the converter part in DSpace, I would suggest not. During my postdoc, they had similar system to what you are saying for testing their wind and tidal energy conversion system. What they had done, they had put their entire power structure, all the turbine and everything that modeled in OpenRT, and DSpace was used as a control algorithm.
Okay. Very good information, sir. We receive actually in the sessions. How to implement
Thank you. I'm
the
happy
POC.
that you found it useful.
Yes, sir. Thanks. Asma sir is there or not? Dhawan sir.
bidirectional converter? In case of B2G, how will we take care of the circuit and control?
I would love to visit your institute sometime when the pandemic situation is done. One of my PhD friend is faculty over there, Hiranchi Pandya, not in electrical, but I believe EC department. So any point of discussions are there?
Sir, I think we can leave actually. Churasma sir is there or not, I don't know. I'm actually one of the participants and I'm very good friend of him.
Okay.
So if there is no more discussions, then
Okay, sure. Thank you very much. Thank you. I believe there is no discussion. Any point is there? Discuss. How do we enable the controller in case of bidirectional control in case of V2G? Sorry, I did not get your question. Can you please repeat your question? Means, are you meaning to say how to control the dual active bridge DC-DC converter? If it is that question, then we have to control the dual active bridge DC-DC converter. There we have to control the phase shift between the gate pulses to the two bridges. By controlling that, we can control the power is flowing in which direction.
and in
yes,
between that
self-running
controllers, I think we have a high frequency transformer.
Yes.
Actually, sir, one of my, not my student, but Churasma student is working on a solid state transformer. And in that case also we have, he's working on optimization of some parameters of the solid state transformer.
Actually, solid state
So the same
transfer will have the
configuration
same
is-
thing, dual active bridge only.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So in that case, the same control I think we have to implement for a DC to DC conversion.
Yes, same control system will be there.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I think the participants do not have any more questions. Shall we end the session, sir?
Yeah, sure. Sure. Thank you very much for the patient listening and discussions.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me? Dr. Amit, sir, can you hear me?
Sir has just left.
So,
Churasma, sir.
हाँ.
Sir, जता गए.
1 minute.
Here video चालू है.
Okay, sir is not picking up
Sir,
the
मैं
first
conclude
call.
करना.
Yeah, okay, no problem. So I am very much thankful to Dr. Amit, sir, because of some other task I was not here. That's why I could not. Please mute your mic, participants. So I am again thankful to Dr. Amit Sen for accepting our invitation and delivering the lecture. So I am ending this session. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, participants. Now you can leave the session. Thank you.
Hello, Kalpesh sir. Hello. Hello.